take a look at our opponent for the matchup on October 31st. We are at Penn State University, and Jack, the two have met every year since Penn State University joined the Big Ten in 1993. What have the games been like?
Well, this will be quite a second game of the season for Ohio State. In fact, if you look at Ohio State's 8 games, regular season games on paper, a lot of people would say this is the toughest matchup. Maybe tougher than Michigan will be there. And of course, we're playing out at State College there, and Ohio State played Penn State 8 times before they joined the Big Ten. And Ohio State had a pretty bad record. Ohio State won only 2 of those 8 games. In fact, Woody Hayes lost 4 of 5 games in Ohio Stadium against Penn State. And those Penn State teams were either coached by Rip Engel, who was a good friend of Woody Hayes, or more recently, of course, they were coached by Joe Paterno. Now, since Penn State joined the Big Ten in, as you mentioned, Michelle, 1993, we played them every year. And we've actually won 7 out of the last 8. And as far as Big Ten games go, we've won 17 and have lost. Let's see, we're 19-8 through 2019 against Penn State in conference games. So we've won about 2 out of 3 and winning 7 out of the last 8. We've not lost to Penn State at home since, of course, this game's on the road. We've not lost at home since 2008. And Urban Meyer did lose one. It was a tough loss out there. Let's see, I believe that was 2016, October the 22nd. We lost 24-21. And that's when we had a field goal blocked. And they ran that back for the touchdown there. So, but Penn State, it'll be a little bit different this year. They usually play us at night. They play a lot of their big games at night with the whiteouts. It's my understanding that this game will be a day game. So maybe that'll be a little bit more of an advantage for Ohio State, particularly since they can't pack the stadium the way they usually do. And so the home field advantage will be a lot less, I think, for all Big Ten games this year because of the lack of students and fans in the stadiums.
This has been a series, Jack, as you mentioned, that's been pretty close over the years, although there have been a couple blowouts. I think Ohio State in 1994, they beat Penn State 63-14, and then, Penn State won 63-14 in 94, but then in 2013, Ohio State paid them back with a 63-14 win. But overall, these have been really tough, physical, games that are won down in the, down in the trenches with those big guys up front. Do you kind of look at this year's game as kind of being that same kind of a really physical type of game?
I think it will. And Penn State, they've been a real physical team. They had the nickname for a number of years, Linebacker University. And of course, Ohio State would argue with that right now with the number of great linebackers that we've turned out in the last, 10, 15, 20 years, something like that. But it'll be a big physical game without question. Now, last year at Ohio Stadium, it ended up being much closer than we thought it would be. We ended up winning the game 28-17, but we had a 17-0 lead on them at one time, and they came back pretty strongly there. And the game, it might have been a little bit in doubt. That was a week before the Michigan game last year. It was the last home game. We went up and finished up the season, of course, with a much bigger win up at Michigan, 56-27, that score was. But Penn State gave us a run for our money last year, and they never gave up, even though they were down early in the game. And this would be a huge win for Penn State if they could win over us at home in what would be their home game. There's another interesting thing. All-time-wise, Penn State going into this season has 898 all-time victories. Now, they open up at Indiana the same day that we open up at home against Nebraska. I'd have to think that Penn State is probably going to beat Indiana. So that would give them 899 wins. And so they'll be playing up the fact that, assuming that they beat Indiana, that they're going to be going for their 900th all-time win against Ohio State. So that'll add a little bit of interest to the game out there, and I'm sure it'll be a big talking point for the announcers and everything as they do the pregame show.
It's going to be a little bit different game for Ohio State's defense to prepare for because Penn State's got a brand new offensive coordinator, but he's not a brand new person to the Big Ten as he came from University of Minnesota. Yep. And he's trying to bring some of Minnesota's high-powered offense, I think, down to hooking with Penn State. Now, Penn
And
State returns 8 starters on offense,
yeah,
but only 5 on defense. So Ohio State's strength on the offensive side, they need to score some points in this game, right, to make up maybe for a little bit of that offense that we don't really quite know what
yeah.
Penn State's going to bring.
And I think Penn State is a little bit, Roger, like Ohio State, when they lose like 6 or 8 starters on one side of the ball, they don't have to rebuild. They reload a little bit. Maybe not quite as much as Ohio State right now, because we've had tremendous depth over the last few seasons there. But of course, Minnesota had a great team last year, really. And it's interesting this year. PJ Fleck has done a good job up at Minnesota. And he's got a lot of starters back this year. Michigan opens its season at Minneapolis. And I know they're not happy about that, because they thought they kind of stacked the schedule against them, you know. But the same day that we play Nebraska, Michigan plays up at Minneapolis. Minnesota will be back in the strength of things this year. We do not play them. Every team in the Big Ten, with there being 7 teams in each division, and each team will play the other 6 teams in its division plus 2 crossover games. So our 2 crossover games are Nebraska and Illinois. And that might be a little bit easier than playing teams like Wisconsin. Michigan drew Wisconsin and Minnesota. And those are probably going to be the 2 toughest teams in the Western Division of the Big Ten this year. So there's a little bit of favorability with the Ohio State schedule compared to Michigan with those crossover games.
Yeah, I know Penn State will be returning a dual threat quarterback in Clifford,
Right.
and he's played very well for them at times. And I know I think he came in relief a year or so ago against Ohio State for a little bit. They've got a really good running back coming back, and he's had Brown, who's had 100-yard games for him in the past, and so this is really going to be a test for Ohio State's defense. Going on the road, playing a seasoned, talented football team early on, and their first 2 games. When you look at that schedule, these are not easy games.
No, not at all. And Penn State, particularly since Franklin's been there 6 years now. And of course, Penn State always did that, but I think they've done it even more so since Franklin's been there. They recruit very strongly out of the East. New Jersey, Maryland, there's a lot of good football played in the state of Maryland, and particularly in New Jersey. And of course, Eastern Pennsylvania for that means. So they recruited very, very strongly out of there. You got a lot of those kids coming into Penn State, and they'll be strong.
Hey, Jack, tell us a little bit. OSU single point wins over Penn State in 2017, 2018?
Actually, we beat Penn State by single points, and that's the first time Ohio State had ever defeated anybody in a single opponent in back-to-back seasons by single points. That never happened before. In fact, if you go back to the only time Ohio State's ever had single-point victories, 2 of them in the same season, is way back in 1916. And that was Chick Harley's sophomore year when Ohio State won its first Big Ten title. We beat Illinois 7-6, Ohio State's very first win ever over Illinois. And the next game, we beat Wisconsin 14-13. That's the first time we'd ever beaten Wisconsin. So those were single-point wins. So, and in both of those single-point wins over Penn State in 17 and 18, Ohio State had to really come from behind in the fourth quarter to do that. In fact, J.T. Barrett, in that game in 2017 over there, he threw for 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. And he had 33 out of 39 completions, 33 passes out of 39 attempts. He completed 33 for 324 yards, and then a total of 4 touchdowns, 3 of them in the last quarter. And we won the game by a single point. So that was a tough loss for Penn State. And then, of course, here in Ohio Stadium the next year, of course, we won by 1.2 in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
was just going to say, Michelle, Ohio State leads the all-time series now 20-14. And those 2 one-point wins in 2017, 2018 were great games. And I would expect the same type of battle over in State College this year. It's going to be a tough game, and I think Penn State's going to have their hands full with with trying to hold down Ohio State's offensive weapons. But when you go over there, Jack, you never know what the weather's going to be like.
Yeah.
It could be beautiful and sunny in Columbus and a snowstorm in State College. So, you're going to have to be prepared to be able to change your offensive game plan at the last second, because when you get over there, it's kind of crazy.
Well, half when you go to Penn State to see a football game over there, half the effort is just getting there, really, because it's a single lane road up from Altoona. And of course, they have quite a tradition for campouts. Basically, the people go in there the night before and camp out, bring their campers in and so forth like that. And part of the reason people do that is because they want to get in there, because it's such an effort to get in there the day before. So these 2-lane roads going in and out of State College there. It's putting 100,000 plus in that stadium. It's quite an effort to get that many people into such a small town.
Well, thanks for joining us again today, and we look forward to this week's big matchup when the Ohio State Buckeyes take on the Penn State Nittany Lions.
Absolutely. Roger, Michelle, great to be with you, and let's pull for a Buckeye win over Penn State coming up on Saturday.
Go Bucks.